Okay, welcome to part 2 of this mix walkthrough. So let's try to keep it moving a bit faster so this one doesn't turn out to be 40 minutes as well. So let's just jump into the screaming vocals. So these vocals were not tracked at my studio, and unfortunately they were not ideally tracked. Maybe you heard that when you try to process these, that they were kind of rumbly. So this is what they sound like with just the compression. Whether you believe who you are inside. And to me, they were kind of hard to make energetic and make them fit in the mix properly. So I pulled down some body on the gain reduction plugin to remove some low end and low mids. And I boosted the gain to add some saturation and grit to the screaming vocal. Same process with the de-essing. I might have changed the filtering. Yeah, here I chose this range for the de-essing because, well, he tracked it with another microphone and in another room, and his SS have other resonating frequencies than mine does. And for the EQ part, I filtered out the low end all the way up to 211 hertz. Dipped out some room noise here, or some resonating stuff in the room. Same principle as with the lead vocal for my vocals. Around 500 hertz, it usually sounds like that with microphones, I've noticed, and I usually dip that out. And here I did some boosting at 5K to get some more presence in his vocal. And some high shelf boosting as well. This is not a typical EQ move for me, but that's what I felt was needed for this song. Then I used the Quadrafuzz plugin again, which is like FabFilter Saturn, but different. And I added some tape saturation. This also clears up the low end a little bit, so you can check it with and without it. Whether you believe who you are inside, it belongs to you. So yeah, that's pretty much what I did there. Then I added some room reverb with a very short decay time. Just to give it some space and not have it sound so dry. And I filtered this one down to 4K and up to 300 hertz. And I made the room size quite small. For screams, I like them to be fairly in your face and feel kind of up close. And the more reverb you add, the less up close they will sound. So I just added some room reverb like that. And then I have a delay doing similar things as with my lead vocal. Just because in this song I wanted the vocals to really vibe, and I wanted some nice ambience and spacey feel to the song overall. Then for the doubles, I did a very similar thing. Although for the main double that's centered, I added a doubler plugin. Just to push it a bit to the side because, I don't know, I didn't want more than the lead screams to be in the center, so that's why I did that. Otherwise, I didn't do much different stuff to the dubs. Some EQ differences maybe. Yeah, I filtered out more low end, but that's pretty much all I did for those. For his doubles, like the lows and stuff, and the highs and all of that stuff, I did some slightly different EQ moves, but it's all very similar to each other. The only thing that was different here is this part, I think. Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's over here, I think. Oh, no, it's over here. So the talking vocals. This is where I feel like a lot of people did not get the part right. So this is what my talking vocals sound like, except when they're isolated. We don't exist to the ones who don't believe, not to conquer without any sense of bravery. So basically those talking vocals were designed to have this radio effect on them. And I just used the CLA Effects stereo plugin. And I just pulled up the filter and added a little bit of drive distortion, and that gave it that effect.
We don't exist to the ones who don't believe that the conquer.
You can do this with EQ and distortion as well. It's not too hard to make a radio sounding effect. And that I did that to all of these. And the main one is the only one that has a delay to it as well. And apart from that, I didn't do much to the talking vocals. So let's move away from screams. To the talking vocals, I added some EQ to a bus that I did for them. Just simple filtering like I've done on all the vocals. Nothing too special there. On his main, for his main vocals, which includes the main doubles, I did a bus. And for this bus, I just dipped out some high, nasty frequencies that I probably just forgot to EQ on the tracks by themselves. Sometimes I like to do this for all the tracks at once, just simpler when it comes to nasty, harsh frequencies that all of the tracks have anyways. And then I have this Volcano plugin by FabFilter, which is just a filter plugin where I did this thing. Just for the build-up scream here. And that's pretty much it for the screams. So yeah, let's move on to synths. This is where it can get overwhelming if you are not used to tracks with this magnitude. How do you place the synths and what do you do with them? How do you mix them and all of that stuff? It can be confusing for sure. So basically I just go through them one by one and unmute one by one until I'm at the bottom. And I like to organize them so the ones that are playing close together are actually next to each other. And so for this glitchy intro synth, I just filtered out some subs. That's pretty much all I did. And then I placed it in a good volume. And this is pretty much what I do for most of these synths, because most of them I've already designed inside the virtual instruments that I use, so that they would sound almost mixed from the start. So just filter out low end so they don't clash with anything, and you should be fine. And then there are some other things I've done, of course. So let's check out this choir synth. I EQ out some low end, some low mids, and I boost some high frequencies with a high shelf, just to give it some more presence and air, so it also cuts through the mix better. And same principle for most things, really. And I like to add compression to synths that are in during busy parts, like choruses, so they sound more even. So it brings out all the details in the synths. And then I just level them to a nice volume. I think I've done most mixing here to the Moog pulse bass. I did some EQing here to bring out some parts of the bass that I wanted. So I liked the top end of the bass, because without this EQ, I didn't feel like the almost pick attack noise that it makes cut through as much as I wanted it to. So I filtered out some low end and low mids here, and I boosted at 5K to get some more attack to those tick tick tick. You can hear the clickiness just kind of comes in with this little boost here. So that helps that bass stick out some more in the mix. And I added some slight reverb to this one too, just for some vibe. And then on the sub bass, I just filtered out some very lows and some mids, so it wouldn't be in the way of other things. And then I used an R bass here to give some harmonics at 150 hertz kind of, which helps it cut through better. So that's pretty much all I did there. And on the pad here, I just pretty much listen to what I want the intention of the synth to be. And then I just filter some stuff and EQ the bad parts that I don't want in there. And just boost the parts that I do want in there. Like, mixing is just like a big puzzle for sure. And it doesn't have to be more advanced than that. Just EQ and compression can go such a long way. And that's pretty much all I've done through all of these synths. I think maybe the French horns I might have done something more to. Yeah, so on the French horns I did some more crazy EQ decisions. Let's keep the compression here. I just did some slight compression, because some of the notes stuck out very much and very loudly, so I just wanted to even that out. But without the EQ, they sound like this. And I wanted some more of that top end, like shine and presence that horns can have. So that's why I boosted some top end here and removed quite a bit of low end and low mids. Just to make it fit into this big outro part. But why I added this Destroyer plugin is because I felt like it wasn't cutting enough through the mix anyways. So I added some distortion. This is what it sounds like without it and with it. And that helped it to really cut through the mix. Let's check with the entire mix. It's kind of subtle, but it does a huge difference, especially with headphones. And yeah, that's pretty much everything I did for the synths. Nothing on the synth bus at all. I just used this to be able to mute them all at the same time. And then on the FX tracks, these FX drums are just a part of the drums that I actually prepared for you. So I did an automation of a filter opening up with some heavy reverb on it. And then I did some volume automation so it fades in to really build up for that part when the song kicks in. And that's why I also have the big reverse sound here. That really helps that kick in and then the impact coming. That together really makes for a huge impact. And most of these samples you don't need to mix at all. Most of them I've pre-mixed because they're included in my mix ready sample pack that you can download in the description below. So as you can see, I didn't use much plugins at all here. Just for this one. Oh, my project is a bit laggy, I'm sorry. So for this one, I cut out some low sub frequencies and some lows here, just to make sure it wasn't overbearing the entire mix, because there was a lot of low end elements hitting at the same time. So otherwise that would have really ducked out my compressor and maybe ruined my master. So that's pretty much that. And since Justin wanted me to touch on a little bit about how I did these things, some of these impacts, I can touch on that really briefly and make a separate video later on how to create these from scratch. But pretty much, let's take this one for example. This impact is a creation of 3 or 4 different sounds into one sound. So it's a gunshot, and it's a bass drop, like a sub drop, and it's also a crash cymbal at the same time. And then they've been processed individually. Gave the sub drop some saturation and stuff, so it sticks out better. And that's pretty much how I created one of these things. And then I blend them together and export them as one sample. This one I think is a gunshot with like a kick drum and a slight sub drop too. But I'm definitely gonna make a separate video on how I create stuff like this. It's a lot of fun to do, and there are no limits, so that's something I love. It's just so awesome. And drum swells like this is basically just a reversed cymbal. This thing is quite interesting. And it would take a lot of time to explain it here, so let's just wait for the separate video, I think. Otherwise, I'll be stuck here talking about effects for a long time. But basically, all of these effects, the same thing applies here as with the synths. Go through them one by one, find a nice balance. I like to check on headphones because impacts and bass drops and stuff are more apparent in headphones than they are on monitors in terms of volume. So I think headphones are a great reference for checking the loudness of stuff like that. Sometimes they might not have to be as loud as you may think. And when it comes to these things, I've actually panned these. I'm not sure if I sent them panned to you, but these two are slightly panned left and right to make some dynamic ambience in the whole part. And I've actually pitched these ones differently. You can hear that one is different in pitch. And then it goes up in pitch. And I did no EQing to these whatsoever. And the only thing I actually processed apart from the gunshot cymbal drop sample are the snare bombs. So I take out some low end from the snare bombs to make them sit better in the mix. And some compression. Not too heavy compression, but enough to keep them kind of even and make sure that the tail is heard, because I like when the snare bomb tail actually comes through the mix a little bit. So let's check it out. I just think it sounds nice, but that's a preference thing, of course. You don't have to do that. So the biggest part in this mix that I felt most people either didn't take their time to do it, or they didn't know really what to start with and how to do it properly, but that was automation. Automation is so crucial to making a mix come to life. So if you just look at my kick drum automation alone, I've done not too much, but I've done quite a bit of automation. If you look here, all these points down here, And basically what my mindset is when I automate is which kick hits matter the most for impact. And the ones that do matter, I just turn them up by like 1 dB or 2 dB, depends on the part. And I go through the entire song and I do this track by track. Sometimes I do snare and kick at the same time just because it saves time. But I just go through the song and I enhance the kicks that I feel matter the most. And this is a pretty creative process, actually, the automation, because this is where you get to determine the feel of the song. Like, which parts do you want to put emphasis on, and what could create some nice movement in your track and stuff like that. Volume automation, it doesn't have to be crazy. You don't have to do extreme numbers and change the decibels extremely or anything like that. Just do it so it vibes, pretty much. Just a little goes a long way. And I do this with crash cymbals and everything. Like the crash that matters, I turn that up a little bit. And it creates more impact as well. And it adds up if you turn up the cymbal here with 1 dB and the kick at the same time with 1 dB and maybe this one as well, then those together all create a bigger volume boost, which creates more dynamic hits and stuff like that. On the bass, I just automated the high or the distorted bass. So for parts that, like the chorus, where the distortion of the bass isn't really what the point is with the bass, for the chorus, the bass is just supposed to sit back and just kind of make that part warm and full. Then you don't need too much distortion coming from the bass. So that's why I did that. But the bass lows stays the same for me through the entire track, pretty much, except for here, where I have some slides on the bass. There I turned up the entire bass bus in volume. Actually, in the part 1, I forgot to touch on the clean guitars and the lead guitars. So I'm going to do that real quick now. So the chorus lead. Kind of messy recorded, or messy recording, but on this one I filter out a lot of low end and quite a bit of top end. And here I actually boosted some very odd places because it helped it stick out in this mix that I created. This probably won't help in your mix. You should find what works best for your mix. And then I dipped out some harsh frequencies. Added some compression to make the lead guitar sit nicely and make sure that every note is heard pretty good. Without it, it sounds kind of dynamic. So that helps every note really stick out in the mix. And then I added some stereo delay, 1/4 on the left side and 1/8 on the right side. And just filter out each side so it doesn't take up too much space. But I still like to have quite a lot of delay in there, as you may hear. And that's pretty much it for the lead guitar. For the clean guitars, I had one track included, I think, that was already processed and one that wasn't. But as you can see here, I only have the EQ here, but it does have reverb and delay on it. I think it already had compression on it as well. And I pretty much just, the whole point of this guitar track was to fill out some space and give some ambience, a nice vibe to the entire mix. So I used quite a long reverb tail, as well as quite a lot of feedback on the delay plugin to really make this one soar. So that was the point of that guitar, to really make the parts vibe. And I heard some of you added distortion or an amp sim to this track and created some sort of distorted lead guitar out of it. And that's cool if you liked it. In my own opinion, that was not the purpose of it. That's why I called it guitar clean. So to me, that kind of ruined the feel of those parts, especially here, since it's like a breakdown build-up. It kind of sounded odd to me when it came in as a distorted lead guitar with no delay or reverb on it. That it didn't give me the same hype as this thing did. That thing kind of builds up some suspense to me that really makes that tiny breakdown part hit really nicely. And also in terms of automation, this breakdown here, I actually automated all these harmonic sounds. As you can see, it goes up in volume on those parts because I wanted those to stick out really nice in the mix, because I think it was a pretty cool thing for the breakdown. So I automated up those things pretty much, and I think I heard someone do that, or they had some good compression going, but most people kind of missed out on that, and I think those disappeared in the mix quite a bit. So keep in mind of things like that, like details. Automation is great for bringing out details. And then for the outro, these octave guitars, these are really heavily filtered for me. So I've actually removed quite a bit of stuff here. They don't sound great on their own, but in context, I feel like they fit nicely with these guitars. Because if I would remove this EQ, they take up way too much space. And yeah, it's mostly volume automation and some filter automations that I felt like people could have been more creative with. And that's fine that if you weren't. I mean, I understand that a project like this is overwhelming to some people. And automation can feel kind of boring especially if you haven't done it a lot before. But once you get going with it, eventually you'll start finding joy in doing it, I think. At least I did. Because there's so much fun shit you can do with automation. It's not only about readjusting volumes. You can bring in different effects for different words or different sections of the song and different sentences on a vocal, and you can do so much with automation. Like here I brought in this glitch plugin with you got this included in the track, but it didn't sound like that from the start. So this is here I just bring in a glitch plugin to make that more interesting. And I also automated the panning. So the first word is on the right, and the second time is on the left, and then back to the right, pretty much. That kind of stuff you can do as well and be creative with. And then on the main vocal here, I did automation on the reverb. Or wait, this one. I did some reverb automation here to make sure that the last word here I wanted the reverb to really ring out on that last one, so I increased the decay and the mix of the reverb there. Since the word was moving mountaintops, I just felt like mountaintops, and echo kind of goes hand in hand. So that's pretty much my decision behind that. And yeah, mostly all of this. I think I've covered all of this now, pretty much. If I missed something, let me know. I mean, this is a massive mix to actually cover like this. I realized when I started. So I might have missed something, but all in all, that's how I did this mix. Then I did some mastering on my own, but the mastering is not important here. So it's all about setting volumes and EQing the right stuff. Like focus on EQ, compression, and setting the right vibe for parts, and doing some volume automation later, and your mixes will be so good when you start mastering those things. Hope you learned something here, and let me know if there's something I missed. And keep on mixing, guys, and keep getting better. You're all great, and next month is probably going to be tons of fun too. So yeah, take care. Goodbye.